You ready, Ms. Beck? You want to call it? Good morning. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the August 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair. Joining me today is Commissioner Aaron Mays. Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioner Bill Rippon.
Morning.
Rich Eckert, our county councilor, joins us.
Good morning.
And Ms. Beck, our county clerk. Good morning.
Good morning.
Before we get started, I do want to thank Parks and Rec. They did a great job yesterday with the ribbon cutting for Family Park Phase 1. The pickleballers were very, very excited, but I think the children were more excited to get to the playground equipment. And so I just want to thank Parks and Rec for all they did. I know that there's a lot of work that gets set up for a ribbon cutting, and they did a flawless job. So before we get started, just want to thank them for their work. Madam Clerk, our first item.
Our first item is item 2, unfinished business. A, deferred from August 15, consider authorization and execution of contract C-256-2024 with HTK for schematic design and preliminary project budget for the restroom renovations at the Shawnee County Courthouse.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nelda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. I'm not sure how to proceed with this, but I'd like to withdraw this item, and in place of it, I'd like to request the consideration of authorization to issue an RFP for design services for the full courthouse renovation project. Responses will be evaluated by the Professional Services Committee, and once those evaluations are complete, I will be back before you with the committee's recommendation.
And by getting the RFP, then we will have a cost proposal and what we're looking at from different vendors.
Yes, we would do a full RFP for design services that would include architects and engineers, and open it up for the public to send in proposals.
Okay. Questions for Nelda?
No.
Then I would make a motion that the item as listed on the agenda be withdrawn, and that it be substituted with the item as indicated by Ms. Henning for an RFP, that it be evaluated and then brought back to the County Commission, and the details as stated by Ms. Henning. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item 3, consent agenda.
There are questions, or is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. A, county clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
This morning we have vouchers totaling $3,987,827.29. Two items to note under infrastructure. One is for $104,403.60 is to Sunflower Paving. That is for the pavement replacement project on Northwest 46th Street under Highway 75. The other is under sewer districts, $251,643.60 is to MCON Incorporated. That is a progress payment on the Sherwood Regional Wastewater Pump Station Improvement Project. I don't have any questions or concerns on the rest of these items, and so I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B, Stormont Valley Event Center. Number 1, consider approval of request to utilize Heritage Hall renovation CIP funds for new banquet chairs in the amount of $14,927.82 from Shibari.
That's correct.
Oh, hey, listen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Matt Rockers, Stormont Vale Event Center Director of Operations. This request is for 600 new chairs as well as storage carts as part of our ongoing Heritage Hall renovation project. One of the key pieces, takeaways from people that have visited our building is that they do not like the old brown padded chairs and metal chairs that we utilize at the facility. So these would be 600 new white wedding-style chairs for that space. We did send this out, got 3 bids. Shawnee was the lowest bid at $14,927.82.
Questions?
No, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B2, consider approval of a capital expenditure request to repair an underground sprinkler main through CSM and Shendel for a total cost not to exceed $24,000.
Morning again, Commissioners. Matt Rocker, Stormont Event Center, Director of Operations. In late April, we had a 8-inch sprinkler main that developed a hole in it, loss of pressure, washed out a large portion of the subgrade underneath the northeast corner of the atrium, box office area, as well as exhibition hall. We had to dig up quite a bit of concrete in that space, as well as all the subgrade. We did repair the pipe, got it working, and had to use flowable fill to backfill all the voids that it left underneath the foundation to make sure that it did not have any settling or any other issues. The request is for a not to exceed $24,000. We did have to include Shendel in this because there was some work outside where they had to tear up some sprinkler lines and flower beds and things like that to get all the way back to the bad portion of the pipe.
And this work has already been done.
Correct.
And so this is the total bill?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact number in front of me. Custom Sheet Metal, who did the majority of the work, was around $21,000. And Shendel has not sent their bill yet, but we talked to them and they said $3,000 would more than cover it. So it was a not to exceed $24,000 request.
Any other questions?
Yeah, is this a PVC?
No, it was a steel pipe.
Did they replace it with PVC?
No, it's always, any high pressure sprinkler line is always gonna be mandated to be steel.
Okay.
We did encase it in concrete this time, so that way we wouldn't have any rocks or debris settling around it in the trench that it was placed in.
Any other questions?
No.
Motions?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item B3, consider approval of a capital expenditure request to repair the JLG 800S boom lift through Foley Equipment Service for a total not to exceed $17,500.
Morning again, Commissioners. Matt Rocker, Stormont Vale Event Center, Director of Operations. In March of this year, we started having some minor issues with the boom lift. It would not steer, and then it would start working again. It wouldn't raise up, and then it would start going again. Just all sorts of little ghosts in the machine. We did send this machine off to Foley Equipment, and they tore it down. They repaired all the hydraulic leaks, replaced several electrical wiring harnesses, as well as sensors on the basket for leveling and just all sorts of maintenance items. The total came back at not to exceed $17,500.
And again, this is work that's already been done.
Correct.
Okay. Just as a question for our audit finance director, typically we approve items before they've been expended. Is there a reason why with Stormont Vale we're approving items after they've been expended?
No, there is no exception for Stormont Vale. They follow our purchasing policy. Both of these last items would fall in the area where they would have the discretion to make those purchases on their own because they're under $25,000, as long as they received the 3 bids that it sounds like they did.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Mays?
I will also comment, I'm on the event center board, and these were approved by the advisory board as well, both of them. And then, you know, the sprinkler line was kind of an emergency.
Correct.
I mean, that was not something planned.
Right. I just wanted to bring that up just to touch base on it. So, okay. Any other questions?
No.
Motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Clerk, on items C1 and C2, if we can read those together as one item,
I
they
can
are
do- I can do
connected.
that. Item C, County Counselor number 1, consider approval to issue RFP for disaster debris management and removal services. C2, consider approval to issue RFP for disaster debris monitoring services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kyle Edelman, Assistant County Counselor. As the memos indicate, we're requesting permission to issue 2 RFPs, one for debris, or disaster debris removal, and one for disaster debris monitoring services. The goal would be to contract with one of each, at least one of each type of provider. These contracts would be standby contracts activated only in the event of an emergency where we had disaster debris that the county couldn't handle. Typically, you're talking federally declared disasters, and in that instance, the providers would ensure the county's in a position to receive federal reimbursement for the disaster debris, or disaster cleanup, sorry.
So these contracts wouldn't cost us anything until something happens?
That's correct, yes, and if, we would act as a pass-through entity. In the case of a federally declared disaster, we're the pass-through entity, so FEMA pays us and then we pay the contractors what they're owed.
Is the advantage of having these contracts the speed of getting somebody out there, or?
Yes, and also knowledge. These contractors are equipped to handle large-scale disaster cleanup. They're also knowledgeable on FEMA reimbursement, and they're, per the contracts, they'll be responsible for ensuring the county receives reimbursement. So it's essentially, we're passing the torch to them to make sure that we receive all that we're entitled to in terms of reimbursement.
I just have a question about this, and this is actually more directed to emergency management, to Dusty Nichols. I know that we've had inquiry as to why this county was not in Central Topeka, Oakland, Potwin, cleaning out trees that were damaged in storms. My response has been, we've not been asked by the city to participate in any debris removal, but would something like this, if it was on a larger scale, be something that would be activated by the county?
Yes. The biggest difference of what we're looking at with this particular RFP, as he was just mentioning, it's a larger scale, but specifically how they go about it. FEMA changes their regulations on the regular, and so these groups would actually be very much in contact and know those changes, but it's also with different types of debris. So you would have debris like you see with the storms we've had recently with like forestry type debris, but you also have, in some cases, you might have technological stuff or hazmat. These groups will come in once we designate the land that they can use and separate that debris. And the monitoring service is actually a separate service. You have the people who manage the debris and then the people who monitor. The monitor is really, to me, is really key, because they're the ones that go direct to FEMA so you can get your reimbursement. But these are larger scale, and it's a whole different kind of debris management than being asked to help pick up trees and so forth. So it's quite a bit different.
Okay, so just again for clarification, if you have a storm that comes through and knocks over trees like we had last Wednesday, that doesn't trigger either a Kansas response or a federal response, so this would not
It's
apply to that.
unlikely, yeah. Depending on the area, of course. I mean, if we get enough damage and we meet those thresholds for reimbursement, that's one thing. I haven't seen a storm so far. I mean, we were close on one, and there might be some reimbursement for the city that we've seen in the past, but most of these storms are not gonna reach those levels. This kind of storm that we would have to call this in, almost absolutely would reach that level.
So in the case of Greensburg, which was a much larger scale,
That would be,
and we
this-
responded with mutual aid to that.
yes, that would be this kind of storm, the wide scale, wiping us off the face of the earth kind of storm, yeah. It's that kind of RFP.
What,
Go ahead.
what kicks in this contract then? Does somebody have to make some kind of declaration of
Yeah,
emergency, or?
the way it normally works, if we exhaust all of our resources at the local level, that's when I, through your authority, call up to the state and say, we've maxed out, we've used all our mutual aid, and we need assistance. That's where some of these start to kick in. On this kind of a storm, because it's a FEMA reimbursement, if we're doing large-scale debris removal, and all those kinds of things have kicked in. I almost certainly have called and declared an emergency at that point, and the state more than likely would have too, which causes FEMA Region 7 to come down and start implementing these things here. So this is big stuff.
Okay.
Other questions?
No, I think this is something that I'm kind of surprised we haven't done yet, because we're not equipped to do the, itemizing of a FEMA disaster. And, their staff is fantastic, but this is something that would be brand new to us. And, to have a company with experience come in and handle it for us, I think would be pretty valuable.
Yeah. And in the past, there's been arguments for both ways, whether the state would just push them down here, or FEMA would just show up because it's a regional type storm, or this kind of discussion too could happen. So it's 50-50, and it doesn't hurt by any means. So it's probably a good idea to have somebody on that trigger, I guess.
Yeah. Justin, does the city have a similar contract?
Yes.
Kyle said.
Is there any advantage to them using the same company or anything like you're having?
That's one of the things we'll evaluate, I guess.
No, you go ahead.
But yes, in the RFP, we're asking them to disclose contracts within local counties, surrounding counties to Shawnee County, because obviously we don't want to be in a position where our contractor.
That's where I was getting.
Yeah, and I did want to clarify, this will just be public lands, county right-of-way in the unincorporated portions. We can't enter into mutual aid agreements with incorporated cities in the county if that comes up. And I think our purchasing policy allows for us to amend the contract at a later date if we enter into a mutual aid agreement with other cities in the county, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle, one other question. Does this affect the townships at all?
If there, any area of the county that's in the unincorporated portion that's our jurisdiction would be covered. So
Okay.
if they're incorporated and they're a separate jurisdiction, they would be responsible. But obviously, we could enter into a mutual aid agreement at a later date. I haven't personally reached out to them to see if they're interested at this point, so I don't know what their response will be.
Is that, just out of curiosity, those mutual aid agreements, is that something that would be between us and them, or would these contractors that are selected reach out and make that happen themselves?
I assumed we would, and then we would enter into the agreement with them, and then we would amend the resulting contracts to, because FEMA really is focused on scope of work, and does your contract scope of work match what you're asking them to do on the ground? So we would need to amend the resulting contract to expand the scope of work to cover, say, Silver Lake or Rossville, if that makes sense.
So, once we have a contractor selected, this might be something good to bring to Kurt's annual township meeting that he holds, and maybe do a presentation to the townships so that they can fully understand what exactly this is. So,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I also think that's a great idea, because this can easily be misunderstood, because just like Kyle said, the scope of work really matters here. And for these kind of things to be triggered, it's gonna have to be pretty big, because the townships pretty much take care of themselves. By the time we go out to do a damage assessment, they already have it picked up. So it's hard to stay on top of that kind of thing, but.
yeah.
But our parks would fall under this, because I guess
Public
Yeah,
lands.
even though they're in the city, they're,
That, yes, we'll cover, I put in there, in the RFP will have, in the scope of work, the parks that lie in the city of Beacon. So it'll be county property. How, if you get into certain parks, I think determining where they clean up will be their responsibility on the ground as it happens. But yes, the parks will be covered.
they're good.
All right. Any other questions?
No,
I'll move for approval of items C1 and C2.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D, Department of Corrections, number 1, request approval to hire a new reentry coordinator at a higher than step 1 at a cost of $81,769.21 for salary and benefits to be paid from the detention budget.
Joe Rucker, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Asked for permission to start the new reentry coordinator at a higher rate than step 1. We're approved to fill this position earlier this year. We were unable to find a qualified candidate. Therefore, we decided not to reopen the position and to wait till July with that new pay increase. Our second interviews went very well. We were able to identify a candidate with years of experience as a career navigator and reentry professional. We're requesting to start this candidate at range 16, step 6, which would be $81,769.21 as the salary and benefits. We believe this candidate will enhance our ability to promote public safety and reduce recidivism within Shawnee County.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I know you just touched on this a little bit, but for those watching, those present, can you talk to us just a minute about what a reentry coordinator does?
Basically, a reentry coordinator will help the individuals get back into the community, to find employment, to sustain that employment, and help them get those benefits and things that help them be successful in the community.
And so the idea and the purpose of the reentry coordinator is to cut back on somebody maybe reoffending and coming back to the facility.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions? All right, I'll move for approval.
Second?
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item D2, consider authorization and execution of contract C261-2024 with Tech 84 for annual maintenance on the Intercept whole body scanner system in the adult detention booking operation for a cost of $10,900 to be paid from the detention budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. This is an item that is, we purchased a full body scanner so that we could improve our work in preventing contraband coming into the facility when inmates or prisoners are brought in. And the initial agreement covered us with maintenance for the first year, and this is to pick up where that stopped and continue maintenance agreement with that equipment, so continue to run properly and provide that protection. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Just for clarification, this is not for the general public use, this is for the book-in use.
That is correct. It's sometimes prisoners that are brought in will hide things inside their body, and this allows us to detect that before they're able to remove it later and make use of it inside the facility.
And this is something similar to what we would see in an airport with the body scanners.
Very much so, yes, that's what it is.
Okay. Other questions?
Does this replace a body scanner, or is this something new?
Now, this is the body scanner. This is just continuing the maintenance agreement, so.
Oh, just a maintenance,
we
I
can-
see.
We can stay on top of it, make sure it works properly.
Other questions?
Nope.
Motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Mays,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item D3, consider authorization and execution of contract C262-2024 with the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services to receive grant funds to support the construction of the behavioral health unit facility in the amount of $5 million in fiscal year 2025 and $5 million in fiscal year 2026.
Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. So this item is the final step in obtaining the $10 million worth of funding from the state of Kansas to help us in the construction of our new behavioral health unit facility that we've just started on the construction for. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions, but this just finishes the deal and makes sure we're going to get the funds.
Questions?
No, I'll enthusiastically move to approve.
I'll second. Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Good job negotiating that.
Yeah.
Our next item.
Item E, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider approval to award bid for grass seed and execute contract C263-2024 with Site 1 Landscape Supply at the lowest, most responsive bidder overall.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So it's our annual grass seed purchase, and I just want to remind you that we divvy this cost out between our operating budget, and then actually a larger portion comes out of our golf revolving fund. So Site 1 was the overall low bidder. They weren't the lowest in each category, but overall, they were the lowest bidder, and we'd like your permission to move forward and award them this contract.
Questions?
Now, I'd move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon,
Second.
second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E2, consider approval to award bid and subsequent agreement, contract C264-2024 with West Point Pools for the installation of a pool slide and pump at Hillcrest Pool at a cost of $123,624 with full funding from the City of Topeka Dreams Grant.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So yeah, we're excited about this. This gives us an opportunity to install a slide at Hillcrest Pool. The local NIA there came to us really a couple of years ago when we started this process. And as the clerk mentioned, this is completely funded through the City of Topeka Dreams Grant, so there'll be no cost to the county. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Tim, I know that time is always relevant. And 4 years ago, we did a complete renovation to Hillcrest Community Center, and we also did updates to the pool. Did we not replace the pool slide at that time, or is this an addition to this is a new addition?
There's a small, I guess I would call it a tot slide that's out in the pool
The frog.
that we're actually refinishing right now.
Right.
And so it'll be back in the pool next season. And this would be an additional, much larger slide down in the deep end.
Okay. So this is going to be a whole new feature.
Absolutely.
All right. Any questions?
I would move for approval.
All second. Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item F, Public Works Number 1, acknowledge change order number 1, final to contract C348-2023 with WCI Incorporated, reflecting as bid versus as constructed quantities for a bridge replacement project on Northwest 78th Street over a tributary to Half Day Creek. This change order provides for a construction cost increase of $15,830.25. Nevertheless, the final construction cost was well under the estimate included in the project budget approved January 25th of 2024.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. You know, with all the construction that's going on around the Topeka area, it's great to get a project complete. And it's my privilege to be able to tell you that our bridge project on Northwest 78th, about 3/8 of a mile west of US 75, is open to traffic. It was opened last Friday. As the county clerk spoke about, we had a $16,000 increase in cost, mainly due to substructure concrete. And I provided before and after pictures in your packet, and I hope you appreciate the benefit that the new structure provides. You will notice there's no guardrail on the structure. That's because the hub guards are outside the clear zone to provide maximum safety. With that, I look forward to your questions.
How many bridges we got left?
We have 261 if you count this one, and we've always got work.
Get one done and more to do.
Yes.
All right. Questions?
No, if it's not a bridge, it's a culvert, right?
That's right, that's
So
right. There's
no shortage.
Yeah.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item G, Commission Number 1, consider canceling the August 26th work session.
Due to some conflicts with just schedules and everything, there's not going to be a work session on August 26th, so I would make a motion to cancel that work session.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item H, Audit Finance, Number 1, continue 2025 budget discussion.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. We are here this morning to pick up where we left off last Thursday in working through the budget requests made from the various departments and community partners with Shawnee County, and we are working towards a preliminary budget. The goal is that we would find various budget cuts through this process so that we can get down to the amount that was previously agreed to by the commission as a target maximum amount of the budget. So previously, the commission had requested reducing the budget by $750,000. During last week's work session, there was a $100,000 reduction to the human resources request. So that leaves $650,000 minimum that the commission would need to find in budget cuts throughout the process before we get to our final proposed budget.
And if you can scroll back down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And again, for those that are present and watching, on the 2024 final budget, the estimated mill levy was 48.653. By reducing it 750,000, it would take us to 48.649. That was the intent of the commission, to have the mill levy at least start below where we left off last year.
Yes.
And we've reduced now, there was a cut of 100,000 to human resources. That would be a wage study. And again, everything at this point, again, before we get started, everything is preliminary, nothing is final until we have had our public hearing and then we pass a final budget. So everything that is on this chart can be still adjusted. So if you have your budget intact today, again, that doesn't mean your budget won't be intact tomorrow. Likewise, if you've had something cut today, that doesn't mean it can't be restored tomorrow. So it's all in flux at this point.
Yes, we are just working towards a preliminary budget, and we will have our public hearing for both the revenue neutral rate and the preliminary budget, or the proposed budget, on September the 5th at 9 a.m. during our normal meeting time.
If you can go ahead and stop right there. I know that in speaking with the sheriff's office this past week, there was an item that came up regarding their intermittent positions and looking at their payroll. Under Sheriff, do you have some information that you might be able to share with us?
Good morning, Commissioners. Shane Hoopler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. Yes, in looking through the intermittent budget and how that was put together through whatever, it does look like we can reduce our intermittent budget request by $300,000. That would be out of that intermittent line. It would take our request to 91,000-ish. And then there would be also an additional reduction on benefits.
Yes. Do you want me to read it since it's
Yeah.
written very light? Sorry. The total reduction would be $330,252, including the benefits.
Okay. If we could go ahead and make that adjustment, and thank you, Under Sheriff, for checking on that. This is the first year we're using Questica software, so I know that it is a little bit of a learning curve for everybody, and everybody's still adjusting to it. After
Yes.
years of our old ways of doing the software, and Questica is going to take a minute for all of us to get adjusted to.
It very much will.
Jennifer, would that same equation apply to other departments that they?
I do not, we have looked through all the other departments. We have gone through, the system calculates intermittence in a different fashion because even though they're paid hourly, the system can't calculate how much you're really going to have an intermittent paid because they're not on a pay scale per se. So it pulls it in and then multiplies it by the number of positions you could have. And so I think there was a little learning curve in the way that displays on the department side that didn't get understood fully. And so when we've had communications with each department individually on their intermittence, so I feel like this would be the only one, but we can continue to look at that.
Okay. We can, again, kind of, I know this is awkward, but scroll back down to the bottom to recap where we're at. We're still looking at 430,000 to get to our
No, we have found 430.
30,000,
We're
okay.
looking at 319.
319 to get to where we're at.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Christine, with Vallejo, if you could come up and we could talk about the Vallejo's budget. I know that you're brand new, interim CEO. We had Bill Persinger retired last week, and so,
He was supposed to be here this morning, but texted me the 80s in Colorado,
oh,
yeah.
he had a good head start. All right. I know I'm kind of throwing you into this. Again, as you want to introduce yourself now.
Yeah, Christine Wills, I'm the interim CEO of Vallejo.
Okay. The request from Vallejo this year was for an increase of $750,000, taking it from $2,250,000 to $3 million. And I know that, you know, Vallejo's been a great partner with Shawnee County, and we've worked very diligently to address mental health issues in Shawnee County. If we were to reduce that from the $750,000 requested to $500,000 requested, are you still going to be able to offer the services to the citizens of Shawnee County?
Yeah, I think it'll be a struggle, but I think we could make some adjustments if need be.
And I know that this is an item that we always address. If the Medicaid expansion was ever to come to the state of Kansas, that would add a lot of relief to mental health and mental health facilities and medical facilities in Kansas.
Right.
And that would assist you in your operations. So,
Yeah. We're definitely seeing the numbers of our uninsured rise more and more, so that expansion wouldn't help in that respect, but
okay. Commissioner Mays?
Well, I think, you know, obviously Vallejo is extremely important to our community. Substance abuse and mental illness is a big problem that needs to be addressed. I guess my frustration is that it seems like we're coming to county government to bail out the state of Kansas over and over again with this. And it really is something that needs to be done at a higher level than us. And as long as we continue to just give the extra money, the state of Kansas is never going to help. And I think that's the frustration of mine, and I know that that's not something that you can control, but I think that until the legislature is willing to fund this, you know, the problem is only going to get worse.
And I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Mays, that the problem is, if we were to take the stand and say, we're not gonna fund it anymore, what is the impact to our citizens? And I think that we have so many people that this is the rescue net that keeps them, quite frankly, it's a life and death. And I agree with you completely, because the alternative of not funding Vallejo is far more dramatic and far more detrimental. And I believe that we also, at this point, still have a statutory requirement for our mental health. County Councilor, is that? So.
I'm certainly not suggesting
Right.
that we cut our funding for Vallejo.
And I wouldn't.
I mean, that's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we need help.
Yes.
I mean, over and over again, we hear that our property taxes are too high. This is an absolutely critical service, and it's falling almost, I mean, I know that you receive income from other sources, but it seems like a very large percentage of your funding outside of your pay-for-service comes from us, and other governmental entities are not helping in the way that we are, it feels like. Or are they? I mean,
Does the city?
did the state increase their funding this year?
This is Kathy Mosier, CEO of Family Service and Guidance in partnership with Vallejo, where they provide primarily the adults, and we do the pediatric part of this safety net. And the state actually had, in past years, increased us, and their newest addition to us has been in the form of Medicaid dollars. So you've all heard of the CCBHC, which is a very top-notch mental health model that both Vallejo and Family Service worked very hard to achieve. But with that comes huge requirements that are going to improve our mental health system and give top-notch care. And with that, the only way to draw down, that also helps provide some of the the underfunded mental health system that we've had for the last 10 years. And that was the state's way to help. But the only way that we can draw that down is through a Medicaid-covered, insured person, is the only way we can draw that revenue down. And so that does not cover any more of the safety net. And so this year, the state opted to go that direction and left but they still fund our safety net. The county provides much less safety net funding. And the issue is that with marketplace insurance and things, there's a lot of subpar insurance out there where it does not cover most of the services that are proven to keep people out of homelessness, out of corrections, out of foster care, out of hospital, out of the ER, those kinds of things. And so we still need the safety net part of the funding. And that's where we're struggling because we are both seeing an increase in uninsured and underinsured because so many of the services that our membership or our clientele need is not funded at all, so they're basically uninsured.
How much money do you receive from the city of Topeka for mental health? Christine, do you have that number, what the allocation is from the city of Topeka budget?
No, I don't at this time. I'd have to look at that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a county statute. The city does give us lots of grant opportunities, and we are, we both partake in those kinds of things, but they don't provide safety net funding, except through grants. They're not required to.
So, just to kind of make sure I understood this, so the state of Kansas is paying more per service, but there are less people that are able to pay for service, or to provide?
They're only, yeah, we can only draw it down if they're a Medicaid insured covered person. And so what that has allowed us to do is it has allowed us to fill vacant positions that we've had this professional workforce shortage as healthcare has been having. And it has allowed us to start keeping up or getting closer to meeting that need that's out there. However, at the same time, we have more uninsureds and more coming in our doors to keep up with. And the problem with that is that we can't always get them in immediately. And what we know is that if we can get them in at the time they identify they need help and get them the service they need, then it takes less resources, less cost, and they recover much more quickly. And if they're on a 3-week waiting list or a 2-month waiting list, then what happens is they get higher in severity or acuity, we call it, and then it takes longer to recover, and by that time they may be involved with law enforcement or DCF or homelessness or other kinds of issues. So this is where it takes kind of a balance and a partnership of everybody working together to take care of our community. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. So, again, I know we are increasing, even if we were to reduce it by 250,000, we are still increasing the allocation to Vallejo by 500,000. So it's not that we are removing from what Vallejo had received last year. So this is still an increase of 500,000. So at this time, again, for the budget purposes, and again, everything is preliminary at this point, I would make a motion to reduce it by 250,000 to $500,000 increase.
Yeah, so total budget be $2,750,000.
That's correct. That's the motion.
Yeah, second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
What was that final number brought down to what?
275.
275.
we could take up the district attorney, if you can.
Commissioner, I have a
Yes.
question. Did you intend to make a motion on the sheriff's, on the change on theirs, or was that just they withdrew?
I believe they just withdrew it.
Okay, so that's, so, because I didn't,
Yes,
I didn't see
yes.
an actual.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
they just
all right,
withdrew it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. KK. Your increase, I know that you've had issues with staffing issues and personnel issues, and also post-COVID, catching back up with COVID caseloads. Your increase that you've requested of the county is still somewhat sizable. Do you want to kind of retouch on where that increase came from?
Yeah, certainly. So we covered this in the budget presentation, but since that time, we've actually had a change in that this body approved our Axon Justice initiative, and that's going to create new efficiencies for our office. And so what I have done is I've gone back through and I've looked at some of those intermittent positions, which have historically existed to support the work of the office. And I think I'm comfortable in saying that I can eliminate some of those at this point.
Okay. Do you have an idea of kind of an amount that we're looking at, we might be able to reduce that by?
Yeah, actually I do, Commissioner Cook. So based on the calculations I was working on, I'm comfortable saying that I can eliminate 7 of the intermittent positions, which would reduce the request by $211,106.33, and bring the new total to $7,929,465.88. And I can give you that.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm not gonna remember that.
Thank you for doing that work and looking through your budget, and thank you for
Well,
looking.
it's made possible because you approved Axon Justice, and when we were here and Chuck was here, this is a game changer for us. It really is. It's gonna change our workflow, it's gonna improve efficiency, and I'm all about those things.
Yep.
So if I don't need the positions, I don't want the positions.
Yep.
Can you give me that?
Yes. Do you want the total number?
The reduction.
Reduction.
Here we go. Thanks. Great. Thanks.
Then, again, since this is voluntary on your part, we don't need to take any action on it, but I appreciate that. I would move to approve a budget for the district attorney's office in the amended amount of $7,929,466.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go to the bottom?
Yes, please.
I believe you have achieved the minimum you have. So you no longer, you have cut more than the $750,000 that you needed to find as a minimum. So now the amount that you have cut from the original department request is $891,358.
That being said, let's just, while we're down at the bottom, let's start at the bottom and maybe kind of work our way up. On debt service, that is a set amount.
That is, yes, that is. That is not adding any debt. That is just the scheduled debt payments as they exist today.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the debt service as it is listed.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
I just want to
Yes.
point out on that it went down by almost $500,000 over what we were paying last year.
Yes.
So that's always good to see.
Agreed. If we can go to the information technology. In review, this would appear that it is primarily just personnel costs. Mark, if you want to address that.
Mark Price Information Technology. So our budget increased of $400,000. Part of it was personnel. That was $72,000 was personnel. The major part of it was actually in our contractual services. That was contained by, we took a big step up in our backup solution. This will help us if we ever do get into any natural disasters or ransomware attacks. We also added some patch management just to make our lives easier and more efficient when it comes to trying to secure our PCs. We also just have some increased costs in our like ERP system, just regular costs there where just through inflation went up, and also Microsoft licensing we're seeing a increase in. So that's where a majority of that increase in budget came from.
Okay. Any questions for Mark? Mr. Mays?
So, Mark, I know that redundancy is pretty important in IT, but I mean, it seems like we add softwares. Do we look ever at like, you know, one software that does many things to kind of bring it all together, or, I mean, it seems
So
like.
instead of having, you know, like you're saying, like virus software from this company, this piece from that company, we do, and we actually did implement that, actually just that 3 years ago. We went through, before we had a email protection software, we had our desktop endpoint software, then we had our firewalls. So 3 years ago, we implemented the Infinity program through Checkpoint. That brought all those systems together into kind of one centralized screen. So while there's still, you know, we've got our firewall software running, we've got our email security software and our endpoint software, it's all tied together. And so we have seen some efficiencies in that product of not having to pay for 3 different contracts, and we did see a savings overall on that particular one. We do continue to look at what options are out there, and, you know, does Checkpoint offer something that is we're buying from someone else? Does it make sense to go to that? Is it cost effective to go to that? One we're actually looking at is just doing a change. Is we have a network monitoring system that sits outside our firewall, or sits inside our firewall, monitoring traffic to and from. There's another solution that I've come across. We're probably looking at the end of the year doing a proof of concept, and we'll actually be switching. Now, you're gonna go, great, we're gonna save some money. We might see about $1,000, $2,000 savings there. The bigger pieces, this then will allow us to actually add more view into our network, protect from threats, not just this. Most of these are protecting from threats that are outside the network coming in or going through our firewall. This will actually help protect from internal threats between computers or servers and computers within the network. So we might see a couple $1,000 savings there, and I'd be happy to take that cut. But hopefully it will actually be able to be increased to where we actually get more security and more protection.
Okay. I'm not sure I understood 100% of what you
Yes.
just said, but thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, Mr. Riplon? He understood everything.
I did.
I would make a motion to approve the information technology budget.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Sorry, I'm just trying to keep the shading in here to say, help you guys figure out what has been passed and not.
That brings us then to, actually, I guess we skipped the special liability fund at the bottom. So if we could, I'll make a motion to approve the special liability fund of $100,000.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0.
I was also gonna point out real quick, I haven't mentioned it today, but I did add a column to this spreadsheet that shows the adjustment. So it kind of makes an apples to apples comparison to the prior year for budget requests. Because one of the changes we did make this year was to shift the insurance expenses from each individual department down into the general expenses of Shawnee County. So on the surface, it was showing a 43% increase in that general expenses of Shawnee County, but when you pull out the insurance adjustment, we actually were able to find an 8% savings in the general expenses of Shawnee County for this budget.
Good. Any questions about the general expenses? I'll make a motion then to approve the general expenses of Shawnee County.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our capital outlay, we've already had discussion on capital outlay. We had set the capital outlay. And I think it actually came in a little bit less than the $2,250,000.
It did, it came in $60,000 less. 61. I believe I have a, oops. It's different when it's not your computer. Yes, so it actually came in at $2,187,880 at this point.
I'll make a motion to approve the capital outlay at $2,187,880.
Second.
Sorry. 62. Without my co-pilot today.
Motion was made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Let's go down to facilities management. There is an increase request of 3%. And that is, again, payroll related.
Yeah, that would fall within the area of just the standard payroll increases.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve facilities management.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Let's pass that 3-0. Okay. If we can skip the Board of County Commissioners at this point.
The only increase there is, I believe, wages.
It's,
So, I mean,
it falls within actually 4.5% would be a standard increase for wages from this year to next year when we include the cost of living increase.
You want to take that up?
so, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's much to change there. I just move for approval.
I'd second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our health department.
I got a question on the health
Okay.
department.
Teresa?
So, Teresa, I was noticing in your budget, there's a line for immunizations and pharmaceutical. That looks like it went up from 200,000 to 400,000 this year.
It's a Commissioner,
As part of our budget presentation, we historically, when we look back at this budget line item, we have just been overspending. And so we have, due to past grants we've had and being able to roll on some of those COVID grants and move money around, we've been able to absorb that increase. But we've officially rolled off all of our COVID grants. And so based on my notes here, we overspent by more than $160,000 last year based on that line item. So we actually should have budgeted about $361,350 last year. So the simplest way to talk about it is just the cost of vaccines increases also. And some of our vaccines are more than others. And of course, being a vaccines for children provider, we're required to have certain vaccines that we have to have on the private side also. You can't simply offer the vaccines for children without also having the private side of things. So that will be true for COVID vaccines and influenza as we're getting ready to roll into respiratory season. So that's really where we're at. It's historically been an overspend item for us. And so we were just looking to get this more in line with what we're truly spending on these.
And do we get reimbursed for any of those from?
We do. As far as reimbursements, of course, we bill a variety of insurances. We don't care, we can't accept all insurances. Some insurances simply do not contract with local health departments. Those become patient pay, and so we recoup what we can through patient payment. And of course, then our private vaccines tend to reimburse us at a higher rate than what Medicare does. For the VFC vaccines, we are only able to bill the administration costs for those.
So let me make sure I understand this. So there are people with insurance that come and bring their children to get immunized, and then their insurance company just says they won't pay health departments?
We are not contracted with all of them. So we contract with a large amount of insurances, but there are some that we just simply haven't been able to get a contract with, and I think it's longstanding that we are not able to do. So what they can do is they can pay out of pocket and they can file with their insurance and ask to be reimbursed, because what they do if we don't contract with them, they become a patient pay.
And they pay at the time of service? Or do we provide the service and then try and collect later?
We are working on that right now. Historically, I would say it has been a billed service, and so we don't collect at time of service, but we are currently working on changing that.
Okay. I mean, it seems crazy to me that we're not able to collect on people that have insurance for something as simple as this. And I know that, when my kids were getting immunized, I remember my doctor telling them they don't do them in the office. We have to go to the health department to get them. And then to think that you would get sent to the health department and then not have insurance to pay for it. So
we do keep a list of all the insurances we contract with on our website. So if an individual's not sure if we accept their insurance, they can look it up there, or also upon arrival. That's a part of the check-in process, so they know upfront that we don't contract with their insurance, and it is going to be an out-of-pocket expense at that point. But they also can, like I said, file the paperwork on the backside to see if their insurance will cover it.
okay.
Other questions?
So I think that's really the only thing that sticks out in your budget that I saw.
Mr. Eckert, as the county counselor, what things can we, as the counselor's office, do to try to collect on those?
Well, we can just typically go into debt collection, but one thing I'm doing right now is I'm asking for a list of the insurance companies that do not contract with this, because I don't understand that. And there are certain measures we can take about that, so I'm trying to acquire, what I would like, Teresa, is the list of the insurance companies that refuse to contract with us, and maybe even the amounts, or if you have it that way. But that's the first thing I would attack, is to figure out why that's happening. There's no reason not to contract with the local health department.
So,
Yeah.
okay. we may not be able to solve all of that this morning, but that, that is still a big piece of your budget.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think, you know, I'm certainly not the expert in the insurance contracting world, and we have had a staff changeover in our billing area, but it is a big process. There is a new managed care organization that we will be, we're starting the paperwork with right now to get them onboarded so that we can bill that starting January 1. There's 2 incumbents, and so we already have a contract with them, but one of the incumbents did not receive that. So it's not just as simple, I know, as signing an agreement. There is a lot of legwork that goes on the backside of that, and so we'll be looking to, honestly, our peers here in the state also. The old saying is billers train billers, and we rely heavily on that network here in our community too.
I have one thing, just in passing, because Teresa hasn't mentioned it, but on the other side of the health department that you don't see, because this is just the expense side of our budget really, is that her department has made a concerted effort and reworked some fee structures that they have at the health department. They have done a much stronger effort in bill collection and in receiving from the public for the services that are being provided. So their revenues have also increased in about the same dollar amount. So even though it's a $150,000 increase to their budget, they have also had about $150,000 increase to the revenues, which helps keeps the mill levy down on the opposite side of that.
Commissioner Mays?
So Teresa, it looks like most of your other, I mean, there's, you know, nickels and dimes here and there, but it looks like most of the increase is wages. Does that mean that you guys are getting staffed better than you were a year ago? Because I know that was, vacancies was an issue last year that we talked quite a bit about.
Sure.
Especially with nurses.
Right. We still are struggling to fill our nursing positions, and so, you know, I can't remember for sure how many vacancies we had last year at this time. We did, of course, lose some due to retirement at the end of last year, and throughout. So we still have, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I believe around 4, I think we've got probably 4 nurse positions that we are still seeking applicants for. And
Okay.
these are still remain a challenge to fill. They're really split. We've got a full-time and a part-time over in our clinical services, and then we've got, I take that back, I believe we've got 3 actually in our home visitation, so closer to 5.
Okay. So everybody heard it. If you know any nurses that are looking for a 8 to
Absolutely.
5
Come work
job
with us and
with
make a difference
holidays
in the
off, and
community.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the health department budget as requested.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, Teresa. Jennifer, while you're doing that, we are past the hour mark. Rather than having a standing moment, let's go ahead and we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll reconvene back here at 10, let's say 10:15. So recess till 10:15. All right.
Before you close this, we'll save this layout for you.
Commissioner Rippon? We are back from recess, so what is our next?
So the only departments we have that have not been approved yet are the items that are highlighted in blue here up at the top. I believe all of them fall into law enforcement and the recreation center. Everything else that is not highlighted is complete.
Okay.
Temper, and by complete, I don't mean like all the way complete. I just, you've made a motion.
Pleasure of the commission. You want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's start with the counselor's office. There is an increase in the counselor's office, and this is primarily salary related.
It is, and actually more so than anything, it is a transfer into the retirement fund for, to make sure that we have 75% of what the payout would be for the retirement eligible people in his department.
Okay.
Apparently, you hired someone who was immediately eligible to retire.
We'll not make that mistake twice.
Not even joking.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the counselor's office.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Community corrections. We are looking at a 16% increase. Tim or Brian, if one of you want to come up. Again, for the public that are maybe looking at prior budgets and going back several years, this is a department that has seen a huge increase in their budget over the last 4 years.
Department of Corrections?
Department of Correction. Well, no, Community Corrections.
Yeah.
You want to kind of address why Community Corrections has increased?
Well, 2 things. Brian Cole, Department of Corrections. With Community Corrections, one of them is that a statute that requires Shawnee County to match what the contribution is of the grants that come from the Kansas Department of Corrections. And we are, I think, pretty close to about 46%, 46, 47%. So we're well on our way. Kansas Department of Corrections has given a tremendous support to Shawnee County for our efforts to do that. So a lot of it is that, and this was something that we worked very closely with the county counselor's office. Now, the reason for the request this year, the only request we're asking is for our ISOs, or the staff over there, to receive an increase in salary. This would just be for salaries that gets them there about $4 or $5 an hour less than those that are in their court services or parole. And we carry a very high caseload and work with the more at-risk population. And we have seen people that are leaving, that going to other agencies for $4 or $5 more for a less caseload. So this is just a request to simply get us closer. It wouldn't get us parity, but it gets us closer to those to make more competitive for community corrections. And this also goes towards, and I believe I'll make sure that this does count towards our contribution of matching funds. Any budget does. So this gets us even closer to matching that, yes.
Commissioner Mays?
So Brian, I believe it was maybe 2 years ago, we were working with another judicial district and severed ties there. How has that affected the budget like in the last couple of years? Or has it?
We simply we lost that funds. Go ahead, Tim. I'll let Tim explain it. He can do it better than I can.
Tim Phelps, Department of Corrections. What happened is the state grant dollars that were coming to us to do that work transferred over to the newly created 2nd Judicial District community corrections operation. So we got less dollars from the state, and in that year in the county budget, the increase we got took care of those salaries so we could use those staff members for the 3rd Judicial District. That's the way we adjusted that, and then that became part of our contribution.
And have caseloads changed since then also?
The actual per officer caseload has changed, yes. The number of our probationers has steadily increased. So it's been kind of like trying to paint a moving bus. It keeps increasing even though our staff is increasing, but per officer caseload has gradually started dropping.
One of the things that we came up and Major Willis came up and asked for was the approval, because we did get grant funds to hire another probation officer, and that was 100%. We don't see that money going away. That was an attempt to lower or to get our caseloads closer to what the state is. We're well above the state average when it comes to caseloads. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner Rippon?
No.
Good.
Make a motion to approve community corrections as requested.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. And then just kind of hang tight, Brian.
Like I said, you are next on the list.
Next on our list would be the Department of Corrections, sorry.
Brian Cole, Department of Corrections. This increase is solely for salaries and our big contracts that are mandated statute, which would be our food service and our health care and behavioral health care and dental care. Those were those increases are.
Questions?
I would move that we approve their budget.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
District Attorney has been approved. Or,
Yeah.
well, I guess we will approve.
You
The
did.
We did.
revised
Okay.
You
numbers.
did.
All right.
Sorry, I just didn't get both sides.
All right.
There we go.
Okay.
That leaves us
That's-
with 6.
takes-
District Court,
okay.
Emergency Management, Sheriff, the Event Center, the Fair Association, and Parks and Rec.
The district court budget, they're gone through. There is a request to address a new program that they are working with, a mental health program. And so that was the increase of the $150,000 to their budget.
Yes,
I know
the
I'm-
AOC program.
And Amanda, you're here on representative of the courts. Are there any questions regarding the district court's budget?
So the only increase really is the AOT program
Yes.
plus wages.
Yes.
An additional
3% for the county staff.
Right. So, personally, I think that this AOT program, I mean, hopefully would pay for itself in the next few years, through savings in other places, but.
I agree.
And we would likely see good outcomes with our mental health, population, so I'm fully in support of that.
I'll make a motion then to approve the district court budget as requested.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Emergency management, Dusty, if you want to kind of come up and talk about the increase to your budget restructuring of your department?
Good morning, Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. The increases were basically, the first one was our half of the MCV warranty that we split with the sheriff's office. The other increase was $7,000 for badging supplies, so we could streamline that process instead of going from department to department trying to collect a portion of funds to do the badging. And when I say badging, I'm talking about the ID badges for the entire county that's been taken out of our budget previous years. So we're trying to just make that streamlined. And then the other was a new position that we just got approved. We've kind of reshuffled a little bit, and we're still looking for grant funds for that, but that's for a new position. And the grants look like they may not be as generous as they were in the past years coming up in the next couple of years. So we're kind of feeling out how we're gonna go forward with that.
Questions for Dusty? Commissioner Rippon? Do you have any questions for?
I guess not.
No, I do have a question. So one of the positions, I mean, we had a vacancy and then we added a position.
Correct.
And we added the position in '24 rather than '25, so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, go ahead.
What ended up happening, we requested the position, the additional position, and then in the course of that approval being happening, we ended up having a vacancy. The planner found a very good position that he moved on to, so we definitely support that. But that left us with a planner position open. Because of the needs and what we had resource-wise, we chose to hire the new position through using those other grant funds that would have normally went for that planner position. So we shuffled positions basically. That planner position is still left open because the people on staff, myself and the rest of the team, can handle that for a while. Because there's just because of the structure of how planning works in emergency management in conjunction with the state and et cetera, we have ourselves a nice little gap that we can fill that for the time being. That other position is being hired to take care of some stuff that we need some specialized attention for. So we opted to hire that at a lower rate for the time being. We can cover with the grant funds we already had on hand. So we are in the process of hiring that new position in hopes that we can get this other position in time for the next cycle to come back through. And then we hire that planner position. So for the time being, the planner position that's open is being filled by myself. And then the new position, we're currently looking for that person.
So the planner position's not posted right now?
No, it is not. I'm filling that for the time being.
What kind of a time frame are you looking at on that? Is it 6 months from now, or?
It depends on what happens here, to tell you the honest truth. Because if we don't get the grant that we've had in previous years and we can't find another grant, maybe stuck doing it for a while.
But if you do get the grant?
Then I'm looking at probably first of the year.
Okay.
It's really hard. We're gonna have to, it's difficult to find an emergency planner with the skills required for that position. So we would advertise probably pretty wide on that.
Dusty, getting way down into the weeds, we've budgeted $25,000 for repairs and servicing. What in repairs are you anticipating?
Those are more than likely sign repairs. There's a slew of different things that are in there. Do you have that? It's between vehicles and sign repair, just regular stuff that goes wrong. Maintenance, I think that's we put maintenance under there as well. That's including tires with regional equipment. We do house and support the trailers.
Actually,
regional
tires are
spots.
under a different area, but
Yeah, so, but as far as the equipment under there, it's the maintenance for those regional equipment as well, I believe.
okay. And then, again, just a note, you have an item for $30,000 for electricity. Jennifer, as an occupant of the courthouse, are they obligated to pay a portion of the electrical bill?
I believe their electricity would be the electricity that runs to each of the sirens.
Sirens.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we are looking at solar for those, but that doesn't necessarily negate any electricity at the time being.
Most of those are probably just the minimal.
Yeah, for right now, like I said, we are working through those and see if it is as effective as we hope, and then we can do a swap over for some more of those sirens too.
Yeah, so we talked about this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that some of those sirens have to have their own meter. And so despite the fact they only run for 3 minutes a week, and we still have to pay all the service fees and everything that come with the electric bill on each one. So it's like $30 a month for 5 cents worth of electricity.
And we try to connect to already established poles and meters, but sometimes it's just not feasible. And that's why we look towards the solar side and the battery. I can find or get your report on how we're doing on those, probably. I want to finish the rest of the year, but maybe at the beginning of the year I can get you a report on how we're looking at siren ones with solar, et cetera.
Thank you.
And if it would be successful, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it would be successful, you would actually have to make a purchase for those items, which would then negate some of the costs that we are budgeting for your electricity for that year.
That is my understanding as well.
So it would be a one-time wash, a wash for the year, and then we could realize some savings in the following year.
Correct.
Any other discussion of emergency management?
Commissioner,
Yes.
I just want to mention that when he's talking about their sirens, a couple years ago, Evergy changed their billing system, and it used to be their sirens would come through on one invoice, or the most of them came through on one invoice. Every single siren has an invoice. So they bring in, 60 invoices?
Yeah, they're all, like she was saying.
So each of them has their own fees.
Yeah.
Each invoice has their own fees. So that's nothing anybody has a choice on.
And sometimes the difficulty is, I know between our offices, they don't come to us in time, and so they end up looking like they're late or being late, just
Yeah.
because of the cycle. So it's very frustrating and challenging, but Scott Garcia is working really closely to get that,
It happens.
trying to get that done.
All over the county.
It does cost extra time, a lot of extra time to make sure those things are done correctly.
So out of curiosity, if sometimes it looks like we're late, are we in danger of them cutting off the electricity to a tornado siren?
Not to my understanding, no.
Okay.
And that's why we have battery backups as well too, so, but yeah.
Motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve emergency management. as-
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Okay, thank you.
Hope you get your grant funding.
Did we do drug court?
We did. We did that one last time.
I just didn't get them marked off.
We've already made an adjustment to the sheriff's office from the intermittent positions.
Should we just talk about the Fair Association?
We want to jump to the fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump to the fair.
my year.
The Fair Association has requested an increase from 95,000 to 108,000, an increase of 13,000.
Looks like a lot of that's rental.
The increase to the Stormontville Event Center has increased from 58,000 to 63,000.
The insurance went up.
Candace, I know the Fair Association's not your responsibility.
She was done.
That's the mistake you make for sitting up front. Bill Sutton was here at 7 a.m. to make sure he got a row at the back.
Candace Stiles, Shawnee County Extension Office.
So, there's an expense of the livestock buyers dinner. I don't know if you know anything or if you're able to speak to that, but in the past, they've budgeted $3,000. Now they want to budget $8,000 for, and I understand this is an appreciation dinner for the people that are buying livestock from the youth that participate in 4-H activities for the fair. Is that all it is? Is it, or is it more than that?
So it's not more than that have been made aware of. It's normally been before the livestock sale. I know they have made it this year outside of the fair. So, but I think, is that just this year? I know last year it increased because they changed the meal.
Their budget that was presented said 2024, 3,000, 2025, 8,000.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It is an appreciation dinner for the buyers of the 4-H and FFA livestock.
Okay. And I know that we've been pushing our Fair Association to get more sponsors and to get more sponsorship of their activities. So, any other discussion again? Candace is not the Fair Association, but she's here for Kansas State Extension.
I'm not, but I also appreciate that they are a volunteer board. So coming to a daytime meeting like this may not be possible, but yes, I'm not the customer for the event center for that contract, and I just try to assist them any way I can. Being in an office, they use our address, they use our phone, but yeah.
In their budget, they had that possible additional space heritage hall at 16,200. Is that part of the ask here, or is that?
I don't think it is. It caught my eye when I was looking through it too. I believe at the bottom, they state that they want you to think about that for future years, but they're not actually asking for it for this year. I read it the same way that you did at first, yeah.
That's why you see on their budget, it says total expenses of $125,925, but they're requesting 108.
Correct. It's displayed it's displayed oddly, but that is my understanding of what they're asking.
Position?
I would move to approve the fair budget.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the fair budget as requested by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. That leaves us with 3.
I'm gonna do Parks and Rec.
Correct, be fine.
So, Tim, your budget is confusing to me.
Me too.
A lot of things switched from one category to another, and so when I look in here and I see, you know, this category is $1 million more than it was last year, I don't know where it's coming from, and so it's hard to track all of this stuff, and so on the contractual services under Parks Administration, it jumped by $1.4 million, and I know that I think that probably has something to do with golf, maybe, but could you explain that, please?
No, actually, we moved all of our, and you make sure that what I'm saying here is correct. We moved all of our mowing contracts, and they were split up. They were down in our park operations budgets, you know. And it was such a big amount that when those would come out, it was hard for them to manage their budgets. And so we moved those all up into the admin budget so we can manage it and they don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
So that was the biggest move. But with the onset of Questica and then coupled with the fact that we went to the 2 districts, the park districts, we did move a lot of money around to try to get everything lined out really for the future. So there is a lot of that. We did try to provide verbiage on each of those lines about where that money was moved and why. But that was the biggest one that we did move. The golf operations would show up in our golf revolving funds.
Okay.
So remember, those are paid for from user fees.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, can you touch on just some of the highlights of the major changes to your, is it salaries, is it?
Yeah,
payroll?
honestly, our total budget request went up, I think, by 1.7%. And the budgets, or the personnel and benefits went up 4.5%. So I think moving the insurance out of our budget had something to do with that. That reduced that amount. I think we did get some cost savings by going to the district model that we instituted. But overall, we felt like what we provided was flat. And honestly, it's a, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They're just a touch, they had a small increase, because once we removed the insurance out of their department, they're asking for a 5% increase over last year. So it rounds to 5. I just was showing you, we have that number now that we didn't have before.
Right,
So-
okay.
So, I go back to the Gage Park Improvement Authority funding that we're receiving, and, you know, I realize that a lot of that is gonna be spent on improvements to Gage Park, but I also feel that some of the maintenance aspects of Gage Park need to be paid from that funding. You know, the mowing contracts, the maintenance of the shelter houses, the bathroom cleanings and things like that, because I think that when the voters approved that funding, I think there was an expectation that we save some money in property taxes at the same time. And I know that we're not entirely doing that right now. I mean, so-
Well, I know we have talked about this numerous times, and respectfully, I disagree. I think that we asked the voters of Shawnee County and Topeka whether they'd be willing to pay an additional tax to see improvements at Gage Park. And it was a pretty convincing win, that they approved that tax. It wasn't property tax, it was sales tax. And as you know, we're in the middle of doing a master plan for Gage Park. So we really, well, barring a few small things, have not really started to institute any of those improvements at this point. Now, the zoo's moving ahead on a master plan and a project. I know that the Discovery Center is getting ready to break ground on a project, so they're gonna see some things from those two entities. But they're waiting to see what we're gonna do. And while I agree with you that at some point, I think it'll make total sense to start to transition some of the maintenance over and pay for it out of the Gage Park Improvement Authority funds. My personal opinion is that we need to show some improvements before we start using that money to maintain what's there. Because if we just funnel that money into daily operations, I don't think, they're not gonna see any improvements. It's just gonna be status quo, and I know, as the director of the Parks and Recreation Department, I'm extremely excited about what we have planned and the direction that we're going. But it's gonna take a little time to do that and pay for it. So I think, can we balance some of that? Sure, I'm sure that we can. I would just be resident to spend a lot of funds on daily maintenance until we get to a point where we've, cleaned up some of the areas and made some improvements. Look, Commissioner Rippon, when he was park planner for City of Topeka, and we've had these conversations before, he started a project in Playland that got pulled mid-project because there was not enough funding to complete it. And there really hasn't been a ton of major improvements there since then. So we've got an opportunity to really, I think, make an impact. And I would just like the opportunity to do that before we started dipping into those funds for mowing and just general maintenance.
And I guess the other side of that too is we keep asking you guys to do more. Like now we have Family Park, and there's gonna be some upkeep there and whatnot. But and relocating some of the maintenance facilities and stuff, that's gonna
take some money. We're gonna have ribbon cutting this weekend at Oakland.
But in a year or two, I think you're right. I think then we can start looking at that. This first year though, it's a little tough to do that, but next year, I could see some utilities and maybe some, I don't know, personnel can come out of those fees, or, like your Rosarian and people like that are just work in Gage Park. I don't know.
Do you guys mind, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm wondering, and I'm just gonna ask you a question, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. But, have there been any savings because we do a transfer from your general budget to, the 3R fund for deferred maintenance. Have there been a decrease in deferred maintenance costs that go for Gage Park? So, or is that all coming out of a different area, or, because that would be a different way, because that's maintenance, which would be improving.
Yeah.
So.
Well, to answer that question, yes, you would. Well, let's take that as a whole. Yeah. We will not be using any 3R funds to do projects at Gage Park. We'll be using Gage Park Improvement Authority money. Now, does that mean I won't spend my full allotment of 3R funds? Absolutely not. Like we've made a major dent in deferred maintenance since over the last 5 years, but there's still work to be done. And so I hope that answers the question. I don't see us using 3R money at Gage. If we're doing improvements at Gage, outside of just normal everyday maintenance, it's coming out of the Gage Park Improvement Authority funds.
Tim, how much does USD 501 pay us for Robinson Middle School's use of Central Park?
I don't believe anything. It's, yeah, I don't believe we have an agreement where they pay us to use that.
Why are we letting 501? Is that just because it's been a long-standing agreement?
I believe it is. I mean, this obviously took place before I got here. I think that they did put maybe some funds into some renovation of that building at one point, the gym specifically. They do take care of the track area behind the building. But as far, other than that, I don't think that they're putting any funds in that building at all. We're doing all the maintenance and all the utilities.
How much does Shawnee Heights pay us for use of the Bettis Sports Facility?
Currently, nothing.
Okay.
How about tennis? Do high schools use our facilities for?
For crossover?
They do, and they are putting a little money into tennis. Yeah, especially Topeka 501. They've done a good job. We have a good relationship with them.
When so are there any discussions about going to these school districts and,
Yeah.
and talking with them?
There are. I know Shawnee Heights has a new superintendent, and we're right now trying to coordinate a meeting between the new superintendent and myself. I did have meetings with the previous superintendent about the situation. I mean, you know, first of all, we're happy to be partners with the school district. I think that, you know, you take something like golf, for example. They're not gonna go build their own golf courses, and they've got kids playing golf. We want kids to play golf. It makes a lot of sense for us to work with them and make sure their kids have a place to practice and play. We do that. You know, when it gets a little bit more complicated with a situation like Bettis, where they did put funding into that complex when it was built, but our initial agreement has expired, so there's no funds coming from them now, and they really are a preferred user of that facility, you know, and we're still treating them that way. They're still getting priority use of those fields, not only baseball, softball, but soccer. So we do need to sit down together, and I've been up here the last 2 years talking about turf replacement. And it makes perfect sense in my mind that they would be helping us fund things like turf replacement, because it's in their best interest for that facility to be safe and look good as well.
Yeah, because just last year, the field that the baseball team plays on, we replaced that turf, and it was $270,000, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the
And
soccer
soccer
field we
the year
replaced
before.
2 years ago, and that was 400,000,
Yeah, I believe so.
something like that. So I mean, it's a huge capital expenditure. You know,
It's
definitely,
a tremendous deal that they have right now.
yeah.
Do they use our girls softball field as well?
Yes, I believe they do.
And do we charge, I mean, for the golf courses, do all of the school districts get to participate?
They do. Practice.
That revenue, is that something that you're, again, I would assume that you would be working with the counselor's office to talk to the school districts regarding any sort of cooperative agreements?
Yeah, I have not worked with Rich on these yet. I had been working with his predecessor on that before he left. But with like specifically Shawnee Heights, with the changeover there in administration, we haven't been able to restart that process. But that person hasn't been there very long, so.
The Central Park Community Center is a very old building. It needs a lot of upkeep. We had emergency roof repairs last year. We've had issues with heating and air conditioning. And so we're taking 100% of the cost on those.
Correct.
Bettis, you're looking at $800,000. $600,000 to replace the rest of the turfs.
Yeah. I will say this, I mean, I'd love to re-advocate for the turf project. I know you approved the CIP. I think that we're getting to the point right now, if we could get the quad fields done, then I think we're at a point where we can start to do one field a year and just try to maintain it, instead of, we let ourselves get too far behind, frankly. And now we're trying to do 4 fields, but if we can do that, then this starts becoming more of a manageable process, especially if we're getting some help from the school district. They're using those fields. It makes it, and not to mention the foundation. Some of the money that we're offering up this year to do the turf was from the foundation. From the Midwest, or the Bettis endowment.
So, you know, we've been doing the playground replacements, well, quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Parks in progress, I believe is what
Yeah.
you're calling it. And if I remember, we were gonna touch, I don't remember the number, but it was a lot of the parks. And so could you kind of speak to how that's gone, how many
Yeah.
parks we've done and how many we have left to do?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have those numbers right here in front of me. Ironically, I'm gonna leave here and go give a presentation to the Rotary Club about this. But I hate to just throw a number out and not be able to back it up, but I will tell you this. I mean, we have touched, in my opinion, every corner of Topeka. And honestly, I feel like we've turned a corner. I really do. I think that that's one of the things. I can tell you right now that Garfield Park still needs work. Santa Fe Park needs some work. Those are a couple of the bigger parks that we haven't gotten to. Obviously Gage Park, that we've talked about a lot. Other than that, I can't think of another large park that we haven't already touched. And then we've done so many of the small ones. We just did Jayhawk Park. We've done Oakwood Hills. We've done, I mean, a lot of parks that are essentially a swing set and a picnic table. So while we're looking at the big things, we're trying not to let the small ones fall through the cracks, is the point that I'm trying to make. So I think that we have made a tremendous amount of progress on parks. We renovated the Hillcrest Community Center. We're about, I'd say, 2/3 done renovating the Oakland Community Center. We're continuing to make improvements at Dornwood, at that complex. We paved that parking lot. We redid their concession area. We painted the bathrooms. I think we've got 2 of the fields completely done. That's probably where we need to focus as we move forward, is doing some more of the dugouts and backstops. I think it's been a lot. We're replacing the pool, obviously, at Oakland, which was a big one, a 50-year-old pool or more. So I feel like we've really made a big dent in deferred maintenance.
Yeah, and I would say it seems like it to me as well. Like almost to the point where maybe we're getting to where there's not a lot more to do.
Yes, there's still work to do, but I would agree with that. I think we are getting to the point where we've really closed the gap.
Let's talk about one of the major expenses that's been hitting your budget. 3 years ago, the county commission took on the responsibility of the Great Overland Station. If I'm looking at this on your budget, your projected revenue is $51,000.
Correct.
Your operating expenses are $402,000.
Correct.
A loss of $351,000.
Yeah.
And of that, 271 is your personnel cost. 107 is utility cost.
Yeah. No, that is 100% accurate. And it's, I don't feel good about that, but there are some inherent challenges with trying to program that location.
And we took over that facility because the Railroad Heritage Facility had come to a point where they could no longer financially operate.
Right. And not to revisit the history, but, you know, we looked at that property as we were talking about this and doing this transition process, and they were spending on average about $500,000 a year operating that. We're a little bit under that, but, so we asked for $500,000 when we came up, when this transition took place, and we were awarded $250,000. So, and now, as you see from those numbers, we're spending $400,000 a year. We're not recouping a lot from revenue. And so that's essentially, in my mind, you know, we've lost money on that situation. We do continue to try to program it, and the staff is working hard, very diligently on trying to come up with programs and ideas. Some have been more successful than others. We do rent it out. We do weddings. Quite honestly, though, the situation that you run into is that people have concerns about having their events down there in the evening, parking their cars outside, just security issues. And it makes it challenging. We had the Dino Days, I mean, that, with the help of Visit Topeka, and that was a fantastic success.
And that was in '23,
Right.
not a 2024.
And we couldn't have done that without them. And really, the whole, in my mind, really of community effort. But that, I guess, showed us what's possible. You know, if we could do that on a regular basis, we wouldn't be talking about this. But those exhibits are pricey.
If you look down the road a little ways, and if riverfront development
Yeah.
develops, I could see that being a good, nice piece of the puzzle there.
I think you're right.
But that's gonna take time, and, it'd be right in the heart of all that.
It could be the centerpiece. It could really, I think regardless of what they do, you're right, Commissioner Rippon, I think there are brighter days ahead if they're able to do that.
But it is an expense for the time being.
Right.
Are there, well, we have a Parks Police Force. Is having officers there going to increase the safety issue?
Yeah, well, we try to do that, but you have to think about you know, that's the first thing I asked. Well, why aren't they there? You know, we have 4 full-time officers, and that counts Chief Code. And so, you know, the chief does work evenings, but he works a lot of days because he's got administrative duties, and he patrols during the day. So that leaves really 3 full-time officers that are patrolling at night. And we've got 110 parks, you know, we've got 7 community centers, we've got 60 miles of trail, and you've got 1 guy out there working every night. And so if he gets involved in an incident at Lake Shawnee, he may spend half his shift dealing with that and never even make it to Gage Park,
Right.
You know, or Great Overland Station. So it's frustrating for us. I know it's frustrating for the public. That in my opinion, having the Park Police Department is a tremendous asset. But they're understaffed, and they just are limited to the amount of impact they can make on a regular basis. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think they make a tremendous impact. I mean, I worked in a department that didn't have park police, and this is so much better. It's nice to have. It's not only is it nice to have, I think it's critical. It's just they're spread too thin. You know, we've got such an issue with illegal camping along trails and in parks, And the park police now they spend, I think they're probably spending at least 50% of their time dealing with that.
I mean, it would seem that the revenue issue on Great Overland Station is the problem, or lack thereof.
It is an issue.
I mean, if our total revenue for the year is projected at 50,000,
Yeah.
we would need to significantly increase that to lower the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, your personnel costs are going to be what they are, and your utility costs are going to be what they are.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the area that's the only area that we have some control over. And so we do want to do better there.
The alternative is to minimally maintain the Great Overland Station, cutting back on our staffing costs, but making sure that it's secure and that it's not going to be damaged, which I don't know that that's the direction we want to go at this time. But that's the other alternative.
True.
If we minimally maintain it, we won't have as many utility costs and we won't have as much staffing costs.
No,
So,
that's,
has your department thought about making recommendations to the commission on what they want to do?
we have not thought about that option. I mean, I realize that's an option, but our focus has been solely on how can we make this better? How can we grow these programs? How can we generate additional revenue? Not, hey, let's shut things down, because I think that's the direction that we were given. And, I know our advisory board, for example, played a pretty big role in this, and they want to see it be better. So while we're not being tremendously successful at this point, we have not given up. So we're still moving forward, hoping to make this better.
Do we work with NOTO, see if they would have some kind of
Yeah.
partnership where they could use the building and help
I met with the new director of the Noto Arts Center. We had lunch last week. That was the first thing that I asked him, is how can we be better partners? Tom Underwood, who was there before, we've had that same conversation. So what can we do on First Fridays? What kind of resource can we be? And so we're open to that, for sure.
I mean, in the same way, when we look at Old Prairie Town, if I look at your revenue says 47,000, and your expenses are 371,000. So Old Prairie Town is operating at a loss of 324,000.
Well, yeah, we also got to factor in the garden expenses into that, which you're not generating revenue from that. So that's a part of that. Well, as you know, we actually,
Your personnel costs are 285,000 for staffing.
we created a new position for Old Prairie Town. And whereas before, we had the person that was overseeing Great Overland Station was also overseeing Old Prairie Town. We decided that was too much and that there was not enough being done at either site. And so we split those responsibilities up, hired a person to take over the programming and running of Old Prairie Town, not the gardens, mind you, but Old Prairie Town, the operations and the programming of it. By all accounts, she was doing a fabulous job, but then she left. And so we will be up here, I think, next week, hiring her replacement. So that's part of the charge to this person, is to look at operations of Old Prairie Town. How can we, what kind of programming ideas can we bring? Obviously, a big part of that job will be maintaining the relationship with the Friends. The Friends of Ward Mead are critical to our operations there. So
Well,
we're-
speaking of the Friends.
there's a lot of opportunity.
Speaking of the Friends, we have a couple of events that occur on a regular basis at Old Prairie Town. And when I was looking at the revenue, I was a little bit surprised that the revenue is only 47,000, especially when you consider Tulips at Twilight. That seems to generate quite a bit more than 47,000 just from that event. Is that money not coming to the county? Is that going to the Friends?
That money is going into the Parks for All Foundation.
Okay. So the county has the expense of the operations, but the revenues go to the foundation.
So I can talk a little bit about that. That is correct currently. And we have an MOU with the Friends of Ward Mead and the Friends of Ted Inslee Gardens and, several other groups that contribute to the foundation. And I know that prior to my arrival, there was discussions about, say, an event like Tulips at Twilight. If right now, all the revenue that's generated goes into the foundation. So, but there are obviously some costs that the county incur to do those programs. And while I have not had these discussions, and Bill may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the Friends groups were amenable to a percentage going back to the county. 20%. I don't know. I don't know what the number was, but I think that would be beneficial to us, at least to help the county cover some of their costs. And we're in the same boat with Friends of Ted Inslee. So as these agreements expire, which I think the Ward Mead does expire at the end of this year, we're gonna try to work that into future agreements.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think
Yeah.
that'd be good. We ought to get something, because we do have staff time and we maintain the facilities.
Right. I think what I heard was that there were some discussions about this earlier, but there was an issue coming together on what that percentage was gonna be. And honestly, from my perspective, I think what we were asking for from the county standpoint was probably a little too high, considering the amount of work that the Friends put into these events. They do the majority of the work. And they do it to raise funds for their organizations. So we want to be good partners. We want this to be beneficial to both groups.
Commissioner Mays?
But, the flip side of that is that, if somebody wants to rent that venue for a wedding, they're going to pay a rental fee
Yeah.
for one day. And, some of these events, they go multiple weeks. And if we're having staff there and,
Right.
throughout the nights and people are probably even working overtime in some cases, it's certainly something that we'd at least want to get something back. Right?
Yes, agreed. And I think the Friends understand that and are amenable to doing that.
And the Friends help too, and that money goes right back into the park. They're
It
not
does.
saving anything, it's just going right back into it, so that helps.
Well, but between those two, between Great Overland Station and Old Prairie Town, that's operating expenses of over $700,000.
Correct.
And so when we look at your budget of $18 million, 18,730,000 is what's requested. Just those two items alone are huge expenditures of the budget. And I know that not everything is going to generate revenue. In fact, most parks, generally speaking, generate no revenue. A park,
Correct.
green space, playground, pools.
But they add to the quality of life for the people who live here. And if you don't have those things, it's a detractor to your community. That's what people look at when they want to move to Topeka.
We don't have a toll on the trail.
No,
Maybe
could generate some revenue due to
Could.
that, though.
Golf courses though.
Well, golf courses are a great example. You talk about green spaces, that's the one area that does generate revenue.
Kids' camps usually make a little money,
and-
but still, they're using the facilities. so-
100%. And that to date is going very well. The switch from contracting out to running our own front is going very well.
I guess my ask is that in 2025, I would like us to really look at our partnership agreements that we have with our school districts as they use our facilities, our community partners, look at our operations cost for Great Overland Station, for Old Prairie Town, to see where we might be able to generate more revenue, or if we need to take a different direction,
Sure,
we need to have a recommendation coming.
okay.
And look at a percentage from fringe groups
Yeah.
too. I think that would,
We'll do that.
that wouldn't
I think
hurt.
all those well, that's, I don't have an issue with any of that.
So I think that for us to continue to, year after year, do it in the same way, and then be shocked or surprised, and
Yeah,
that's on us. So,
And
Commissioner Mays?
I'd just say back to, Great Overland Station, I think, let's look at the hours that we're open. Like, do we need to have the doors unlocked all day, every day, or
we
only
have
when,
reduced that.
only when there's an event happening, that kind of thing? And when there's nobody in the building, does the air conditioner need to be running, that kind of thing as well?
Well, we did just replace the heating and air. And so we now, I don't know if you remember back when we were having commission meetings in that building, and Cindy was getting on me every week about how cold she was, because we just could not control that. That was just, it had issues. So I think we are gonna see some efficiencies there, and we do have that ability now where we didn't before. So, other than manually shutting it off.
And then out of curiosity, I know it's a historic building, but is there like an attic with insulation in that building as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. You've got that.
Mark, have you been up
maybe
there?
Mark knows.
Mark Price, Information Technology, because we have data services up there. Yeah, there is a full attic across the whole building. It's insulated.
There you go.
There's actually two big stairways that pull down to get to part of the attic.
Oh, I do remember that.
So, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I do remember the stairway now that pulls down at the top of the stairs to upstairs. I just didn't venture up there.
Okay. Well, I mean, that, energy efficiencies on an old building like that, it probably makes a big difference, I would guess, but, we want to revisit this later.
You want to think about it a little bit more?
Yeah, I'd like to go through a little more detail, probably.
Okay. How about we do this? Let's approve it as it is, so we can get to a final working budget, knowing that next Thursday, I would like this to get a final budget today, in a preliminary form. We can come back to this next Thursday to revisit any adjustments.
I'm not going to be here next Thursday.
Okay, I apologize. And we don't have a work session on Monday.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll have a work session on the following Monday, because I think it's a holiday.
And not that I won't have people here, but I will actually be out of town on the 5th. Would be the next one. Jess is chomping at the bit to come up and do this. But
Which then brings us to the 5th, which is when we have our public hearing.
Correct.
We are at a spot. Let's take another 5-minute recess. We'll reconvene at 11:25. We're back from recess. It- Continuing with our budget discussions, we've had discussions of the Parks and Recreation for some time now. If we could take up the Stormont-Vail Event Center and discuss their budget. And this is on the Stormont-Vail Event Center operating.
Yes, this is just the operating portion. You guys approved the $100,000 for the building expense last Thursday.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Seitz, Stormont-Vail Event Center. Our budget for 2025 is an increase of around $315,000 in the operating cost after we strip out the property insurance premium liability.
Conversation, questions for Stormont-Vail Event Center operating?
Right now.
Commissioner Rippon?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the Stormont-Vail Event Center operating budget as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. That brings us to the sheriff.
I just scrolled down to the bottom, just so you can see where you are at this point. Just as a refresher, it's been a while since we looked at the bottom line.
Okay. If we can go back up to the sheriff and kind of finish that, conclude that discussions. Commissioner Mays.
Okay, so looking at the budget here, I mean, okay, so I see that the personnel went up, and that's understandable. I mean, that's just kind of how things have been going. But then, under supplies, it went up by almost $1 million, and I'm not really sure I understand where that's coming from. I mean, a lot of it is just under, it says law enforcement equipment. Last year it was 0, this year it's 207,000. I mean, did those come from somewhere else that I'm just not seeing?
Restructuring of the line items.
Okay.
That's my understanding, and I, not knowing exactly where you're looking, sir.
Okay.
I think there were a lot of, like SWAT supplies, increase in supply purchases for this year. Those were the larger items, I think.
Yeah, so like the SWAT supplies
Yes.
were one that I saw that, I mean, gasoline went from 121,000 to 436,000.
The gasoline is fairly easily explained, as I explained in a prior meeting. In our 2023 budget with efficiencies that we've realized in 2023, and the change in the way that we were paying for fuel. We had paid for fuel with prepay without being able to prepay it this year. That's
Okay.
why that line increased.
Okay, another one, vehicle customizations was 0 last year, it's 100,000 this year.
Yeah, again, that was a request that we had made for the '24 budget, but we were able to realize those savings in '23 to move forward in '24. The total of those, that dollar amount is about 633,000 from our from our '24 request, that we were able to reduce that '24 request.
Okay,
So it's
So-
approximately 633,000 that had to be moved over, and we still have those expenses,
okay.
while they didn't necessarily show in the '24 budget.
Gotcha. Because, I mean, yeah, it's just kind of, some of these are pretty vague, you know, 125,000 for just law enforcement equipment. And I'm sure that there's like specifics on what that is, just doesn't show on here. So,
Questions you might have, Commissioner Rippon?
Well, yeah, I was looking at, I mean, the administration, there was a pretty good jump in the membership dues and subscriptions.
A big piece of that was a reclassification of our Lexipol, which is our policies and procedures. It's now a subscription and a membership. If you'll remember, in years past, many years past, we were CLIA accredited, and that expense was considerably higher than this expense. And we transitioned to Lexipol several years back, and that's just moving it from one place to another is why that line in particular has gone up. It was realized somewhere else in the budget in 2024. Can't point to it exactly, unfortunately.
So, okay, back to a few of these items, like those vehicle customizations. I went back, I looked at the '23 budget, and it wasn't there either. I mean, was this something that was just paid for from another source? Or,
A piece of that would have been requested in capital outlay at one point in time, but because of the different ways of funding that, we don't fund the upfit through
Okay.
capital outlay and capital improvement. And yes, some of those monies would have come from different places in the budget.
gotcha.
Under Sheriff, can you address why under Communications 911, our travel expenses is increasing from 13,000 to 27,000?
Just different training, is the only explanation I have right now. We have, many different, there's APCO conferences, there's, Motorola has users group meetings that we have to attend, trainings, et cetera, in that travel.
I mean, that's a 110% increase in 1 year. And again, I know that we're talking about $13,000 on a $23 million budget, $24 million budget.
And I will say that a lot of these lines, and I'll come right back to that, but the contractual services actually, in administration, that was moved from services. It was actually in 5230 in services, the prior year, to Commissioner Rippon's question. In an effort with, new accountants in the sheriff's office and a change in the way of doing things, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I think it's good. We're trying to be more efficient on where we budget and how we budget. I just spent 2 hours in a meeting yesterday trying to be become more efficient with the cost that we pay to two different vendors. It is something that we're constantly looking at, but the budget has become more particular in where things are and try and get those monies exactly where they're supposed to be from the funding source, from the division that they're supposed to be in. When I first started working with the budget over 20 years ago, the services budget handled literally all contracts, along with all the other subsets of that division. And as we've expanded and tried to be more particular on where those contracts are, whether that be recertification of stalker radars that used to be in services and now it's in operations, which is patrol who actually uses those radars. So there is some movement in that, just trying to become more accurate in the accounting of the dollars and where they're going and who's actually expending them within the agency.
I'm just going to add, I'm making a note of one of the items I would like, a report we would like to get out of Questica, and I'm sure some of these larger departments who have multiple divisions would agree. We're going to try and find a summary that will actually group all of the sheriff's office by object code, and so that you guys don't have to necessarily look at which division it's coming out of, and just be able to look at the department as a whole. So you could look at Parks and Rec and Sheriff's Office and actually see what their 50230 line looks at, like, and you don't have to worry about the fact that they operationally switched it to another area.
And yes, the sheriff's office would appreciate that.
Undersheriff, I'm looking at all of your areas, and almost every area that you've got, your training and travel is just shot way up, and from last year to this, from 2024 to 2025. Just the travel alone, and again, this may not be 100% comprehensive.
There's multiple trainings that go on throughout any given year that we have to travel to, whether that be certification for the SWAT team snipers, for our subject matter experts in New World Tyler Technologies, user groups for that. We have expenses, other professional conferences.
It appears clothing has taken a large jump in a lot of these different areas too.
And again, Undersheriff, this may not be a completely comprehensive list, but you've got a $50,000 increase in travel and training, going from $99,569 to $149,496. And I understand that, you know, everything goes up, prices increase for, but is that an area that we might be able to scale back on?
I know that we look at every training request that comes forward, and as we're building our budget, we try and identify the things that we need to make sure that we're proficient on, and the training locations to make sure that if we can bring that in-house, our training department works diligently to try and bring as much training in-house as we possibly can. But yes, we are always looking for efficiencies, and will continue to in this and literally every other line within the budget.
Other questions for the commissioners?
Not that I can think of. I wouldn't mind, I feel like I'd like a little more detail on some of these things. And I know, Jennifer, you get the actual budget requests, so you probably have a lot of this information, I would guess. Or,
We have the exact same information that you have in Questica.
okay. So some of, like I understand some of it's carried over from previous years, like I get that, but it's just hard to tell what is and what isn't, you know? And so if we could just get together sometime over the next week and
Be happy
and like
to.
go through this a little bit more detailed.
Absolutely.
Because I know you don't have everything at your fingertips right now either, so.
Correct. I will state that I'm out of town for the beginning of next week, except for Friday, but
Okay.
I'd be happy to today, tomorrow, at your.
Well, and even if it's not you, if somebody whoever's putting all this in the computer. You know, it
Absolutely.
might- So, okay.
Likewise, if you can, again, go through the budget, just, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the sheriff's request, and again, this is for the purpose of establishing our budget that we would be presenting to the public on September the 5th. So this is a motion to approve the sheriff's budget at $24,418,119.
Say that amount again.
$24,418,119.
All right. I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
So that leaves, I believe, only Parks and Rec.
And again, I'll make a motion to approve Parks and Recreation at $18,730,247.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. This will draw us to the ability to present a preliminary budget to the public on September the 5th at the public hearing on that date.
Yes. And I just want to clarify, because there is already another budget that is being published, because we have to publish a budget that ties back to the notice that went out with the original. So we will have two budgets available for people. The one that ties back to the RNR, or to, not to the RNR, to the mill levy that was listed on the
On the R&R notice.
yes, on the R&R notice, which is the one that we are required to have put out on our website and filed with the clerk's office and published in our local paper. So that will be going out, but then we will also have this lower budget that we will have available for conversation that night. And we can make this available online as well.
All right.
Yeah,
We
they don't.
cannot replace the one with this.
No, I know, there, because that was the one that was, but
Yes.
it's okay, as long as you're under
Which we
what
are.
there, what you published here.
Okay.
You can do that.
All right. Any other discussions on the 2025 budget? Yep. Our next
Thank
item.
you.
Item 5, public comment.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on any item. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, our next item.
Item 6, administrative communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head to address the commission.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation. I just want to remind everybody that we'll be doing a ribbon cutting this Saturday at 11:30 at Oakland Billard Park for the new Oakland pool. So the pool will be open Saturday and Sunday, 2 days only, but we're excited. It looks great, and I think the weather's supposed to be pretty warm this weekend, so hopefully we'll be all right.
Sounds great.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tim.
Tim, is the concession stand stocked and ready to go also, or?
Unfortunately, no. I think we're going to have water there for folks, but we're not going to have any concession operations for these 2 days.
Okay, good to know. Maybe see if we can get a food truck or something over there.
I think we're working on it, so I can't really announce anything right now, but I think they're working on it. I just haven't heard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other administrative communications? Commissioner Rippon?
I have nothing to add.
Commissioner Mays?
Just the family park grand opening yesterday was a lot of fun. It was really neat to see all those kids start climbing up that tower at the same time, and so and all the pickleballers kind of running to grab a court before everybody else. So it reminded me of the Country Stampede when they opened the gates, So it was neat.
I'm sure they're out there now already.
Yeah, I imagine there are people playing right now.
I don't have anything additional. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 7, executive session.
There is a need for an executive session for consultation with the attorney for the body or agency which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. This would be for a period not to exceed 30 minutes, no action as anticipated, and then also for matters relating to the employee or employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representative or representatives of the body or agency. This would be for the bargaining units of the Teamsters, Communication Workers of America, and the Fraternal Order of Police not to exceed 20 minutes for a total, and no action is anticipated, not to exceed a total of 20 minutes for that item, total of 50 minutes for both.
Commissioner, I think we can do ours in 20 if you want to shave 10 off that.
All right, so total of 40 minutes total, 20 and 20. And that is a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. We will begin the executive session at noon. We are back from executive session. No action was taken. We are adjourned.